Hello, welcome back. It's Sarah from Roadworthy. I'm late here. Yes, I am. I don't know. Everything just sort of got away from me. Um, it's continued to be warm here. Um, and somehow that's turned into we're playing a lot of board games. Um, and so, my sons are about 3 years apart, and they're very different personalities. And somehow, for years and years, board games has sort of been the only way to get those two to connect and converse. And so we typically, when the four of us get together, we play board games a lot. And oh my gosh, hang on, the wind. There we go. Oh my God. The trials of filming outdoors. Oh, anyway, other than board games, you might be thinking to yourself, wow, Sarah's wearing a lot of makeup. Yes, I am. Immediately after filming this, I need to go to have family photos. So I think I've mentioned that my nephew got married in April, and my mother-in-law is kicking herself because she never asked the photographer to do a photo of our family. So she's making up for it now. So we're doing photos today. Um, is that all we've got going on? I kind of think so. Um, oh, so I think I mentioned last week that I'm fostering Knuckles, the Greyhound, and I am. It's supposed to be just a week of vacation coverage. He's supposed to be super chill, easy peasy. Okay, sure, I can do vacation coverage. Well, literally 2 days before I'm supposed to get him, he has seizures and ends up in the emergency room, blah, blah, blah. So like 30 years ago, was a vet tech. So I was like, I'm fine bringing him home, doing pills, all, that whole scene. Well, it takes them a little bit of time to adjust to the anti-seizure medication. Like 5-ish days. And so the poor dog came to my house. I mean, drunken sailor, like could not walk a straight line, like bouncing into the walls, bouncing into the furniture. And he was so out of it. He would just squat and pee on the hardwood floors. Um, so, on the one hand, I feel so bad for him, but then on the other hand, I'm like, dog. So we're he's now been with us 4 days. He's vastly improved. He is housebroken again. Went on a long walk this morning and he's trotting around. So he's definitely feeling much, much better. But I think I've helped him through his real personal low. Anyway, this little, easy peasy vacation coverage this has been work and way more than I bargained for. Anyway, so let me talk about what I finished this week. Um, so, a literary life is having a literary journey exploring the horror genre, and I'll link her video down below where she talks about that. And people are being encouraged to pick up um, uh, a book from the different subgenres of horror. And I've read a few horror novels that I enjoyed. Um, I've read a few that I was like, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And one of the subgenres is echo horror. So, I love a dystopian novel. I love a sci-fi novel. So I thought, well, you know, I'll give it a shot. And so I looked at, a list of recommended books in the echo horror subgenre, and this came up: Stillicide by Cynan Jones. Um, Jones is a Welsh author, and this is um, climate fiction in the sense that we're in the future. Um, the the seas have risen. Water is a very precious commodity. So, sort of the big sort of backdrop in this book is they are towing an iceberg to an unnamed city. So, London, I don't. Maybe it's a city in Wales. I don't know. Somewhere there. They're towing an iceberg, and in the city, they're building this giant trench to accommodate wheeling in the iceberg. And then as you wheel it in, the pressure of moving it causes it to melt on the bottom. And so that is what they're anticipating uh, the city using as its source of clean, potable water. So, and so and then currently, while they're waiting for the iceberg to arrive, um, they have these water trains. Um, so these trains filled with clean water. I don't know where they're coming from exactly. Um, and then they're arriving into the city, and so the pipelines and the trains themselves can be frequent um, uh, attacks of sabotage. So that's sort of the background of what's going on. Now, this in some places is described as a novel. And I've heard other reviewers and other readers describe this as interconnected short stories. Um, that feels like a better description to me. So each of these chapters is set in this world, and it sort of takes the point of view of a different character. Um, you could have a chapter that's from a husband's perspective, and then a couple of chapters later, you get his wife's perspective, or you know, um, that kind of thing. Or at one point, there's a guy who's um, sees a boy and his dog outside the window. And in the first story, I think it's the first one, you also have him mentioning a boy and a dog um, lost, in sort of the no man's land, um, which is this area that people aren't supposed to go into when the trains are coming through. So each of these stories, you are sort of plopped down in the middle of the action. It's mid conversation, mid scene. So it is sort of these vignettes. And it's very like sentence, you know, sentence, sentence. They're all sort of, you don't really get cohesive paragraphs here. I have to say, when I first picked this up and started reading it, of course, again, because you're dropped in the middle of this, it's like I have no idea what's going on. I felt like I had a challenge perhaps getting into it. Thankfully, each of these chapters is maybe 10 pages, so they're short. And I have to say, I it really only took me a chapter or two before I was like, oh, I get it. I get the world. I get what's going on. There's not a lot of world building. He very cleverly inserts just a little detail to give you a sense of what this city is like, or this period of time is like. So he talks about, the waste collectors in the mornings making noise and waking people up, collecting um, human waste, because they don't have toilets with running water anymore. Um, there's just there's a one of the very early chapters about this woman who makes these paper flowers to sell in the market, and she melts plastic as the glue. So again, just those little details of melting the plastic, is what gives you sort of the vibe of what this culture and community is like. So really, really well done for such a short book, and again for such a like a little snippet flash fiction kind of style. Um, I ended up actually really, really liking this book, and I'm interested to pick up other books of his. I believe he's just a literary fiction writer. Like, I think this is sort of dystopian climate fiction, but I don't necessarily think his other books are like that. So I'm curious to pick up more of his stuff. I mentioned I picked this up as an echo horror genre example, and I can't say I felt the horror. Um, I mean, again, you definitely get a strong sense of this is a world I don't want to be a part of. But I, I didn't necessarily feel tension, or well, that's not really the right. I wasn't fearful or anxious for any of these particular characters. The other thing I want to point out about this book for people who are like, oh, horror, a dystopian, blah, um, the other, this is way more literary. And what I mean by that is one of the chapters, uh, I think that it's easiest for me to describe and give you a sense, is a lot of these chapters are really everyday life. Um, it's a guy, a guy, a professor who gets very excited because someone sends him a sample of a bug that has supposedly been extinct from the area for many, many years. Um, you get another chapter with a son who going to visit his aging parents and worrying and trying to convince them, come live with me, because they live in this house by the shore, and the shore is being eroded right from the rising seas, and so it's kind of becoming unsafe and precarious for them to keep living there. But the way that's written is it's just, again, that that fear of many adult children my age have, right, of worrying about their parents, and perhaps trying to get their parents to um, move into a what they perceive as a safer location. um, so just husband and wife, um, just kind of everyday slice of life kinds of things. So I felt like the slice of life characters, that stuff is really a much, much stronger presence than telling a plot heavy dystopian novel. So this is really well done. So, um, I think it's a good book if people are consider themselves much more literary fiction people, and like, oh, I would never read dystopian. This is a good one to try for you doubters out there. I finished listening to The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. Arden is mostly known as a YA fantasy writer. She wrote the series. I don't know what the series is called, but the first book is The Bear and the Nightingale, and I actually read the first two books of this series, um, because it was a fantasy series that included a lot of Russian folklore, and I thought that sounded unique and cool, and so I gave it a whirl. But um, so this is her. I believe this is her first adult fiction book, and this is about two siblings, Laura and Wilfred, Freddie Ivans, who they're from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Freddie is a Canadian soldier in the army, and Laura is a nurse, becomes a nurse, and this is during World War One. I think I forgot to mention. So Freddie is over in Belgium, and he is part of the raid battle of Passchendaele. I don't, which was a terrible military disaster for the British. Um, and um, while he's having that experience, Laura is at a hospital nearby. The military leadership put this hospital, and now I'm forgetting the name of it, near an ammo depot, thinking that the Germans would not attack that depot if it was right next to a hospital. Well, they did. And the hospital gets hit, and Laura is injured. So this opens with her being back home in Halifax, and there is a shipping disaster, some sort of, I don't, um, commercial ship explodes in the harbor, and her home and her parents are killed. So this, and then she sort of befriends someone who runs a charity hospital in Belgium, and she believes Freddie is dead, and she wants to find out what happened to him because she received a box of all of his goods, his possessions, his coat, his dog tags, all of his stuff. But both dog tags are there, which she knows, being a nurse, that usually they separate the dog tags, send one home to the family, and keep one with the body. And but she received both. He's listed as officially missing. And so she decides to make her way back to Belgium to figure out what happened to Freddie. At the same time, Freddie, you find out, ends up in an overturned pillbox with a German soldier during the raid on Passchendaele. And their adventures continue. And so, a whole bunch of stuff happens. And really, there are ghosts involved. I don't want to say ghosts because it does turn into, were they ghosts? Or did people just see something that has an explanation? There's a man who who is this mysterious character who sort of shows up in the middle of the war, running a hotel. Um, if it feels a lot like, Hotel California, like you can check in but you can never leave, kind of a thing. So he's this interesting sort of paranormal being, but you're not quite sure, you know. Um, I think a lot of this is for Arden a metaphor for the trauma that Laura and Freddie experience and their path to overcoming this trauma. Um, I was really, really shocked by this book. Again, for someone who I consider, a YA author, which apparently I looked down my nose at that and is like, that's not real literature. So God, this sounds awful. I wasn't really expecting much. I was expecting to be entertained, and I certainly was. I think I listened to 8 hours of this book on a day where I went on a long hike. Um, so while I was getting ready, eating breakfast, the hike there, the hike back, the cleaning up, the blah 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 blah. And so, like I said, I listened to the vast majority of it in like one fell swoop. I was for sure entertained. Um, I was very pleasantly surprised by the characterization, the pacing, um, the the use of the ghosts in the paranormal elements. I was really surprised about. Um, yeah, I was really, really surprised. It's like, I guess, historical fiction with paranormal elements, but really well done. I, I don't remember where I heard someone mention this book as being really good. I can't remember who I was watching who said that. Um, but I really, really liked this book, and I wouldn't say I like ghost stories, but it just was really, really effectively done. So yeah, I would encourage people to pick this baby up too. Um, what am I got listening to? So still reading. I'm almost done with the Diviners with Lindy and Maya. And I'm almost done with The Red-Headed Pilgrim by Kevin Maloney. Um, and I just started listening to Claire Messud's new book. I don't know what it's called. I'm seriously like a half hour in, so I don't even really have anything to say about it. Um, that's it. That's what I got going on. I gotta stop this because I gotta go take pictures. Um, I hope you all are doing well, staying cool, and reading some good books. Thanks so much for joining me.